The most liked comment decides what happens next. So comment what choice the main character should make at the end of this story. Keep choices short, stay on topic, and stay within the genre. Silly comments will be ignored. A sequel is not guaranteed. I thought this would be a fun experiment on a very cold, snowy day. Have fun, and like the video if you want to see more like this. I was warned to stay away from the fields. The first time I remember my father telling me to stay away from the fields, I was 4 years old. He grabbed me by the collar of my Sunday dress shirt and yanked me close to him. Gritting his teeth, he growled at me. "Boy, don't you ever go into those fields, you hear?" At the time, I thought I was being reprimanded. I frantically nodded my head until he relented, letting me go and smoothing out the wrinkles in my shirt with his calloused farmer's hands. Hurriedly, I ran to my room and shut the door. My father put the fear in me from the very start, and though I was confused, I listened to him. Anything to avoid another snap from him. My dad, an aging farmer, was a stern man. His word was law in our house. I was to be done with my chores and clean by the time he got back to the house after working in the fields all day. He tended to his crops from dusk till dawn, coming in only to eat, kiss his wife on the cheek, and go to bed. Father had never been an abusive man, never hit me or my mother. Even our first dog, Nestor, who had been a tempest of havoc, Father never touched him beyond a gentle pet. Self-control was something my father had in scores, so having been scolded by him that way, seemingly out of nowhere, stuck with me even till now. As I grew older, the weight of that original warning weighed less and less on my mind. After all, I'd worked next to the field since his tyrannical message, cleaning the horse stables and goat pens, and never once did I experience anything troublesome or dangerous. Maybe he had simply been agitated with the crops, losing his temper for a moment to make sure I didn't go bumbling about in the fields breaking some of the stalks. By the age of 6, I'd begun planning an adventure through the fields during the evening when my father would be furthest away from the house. Perhaps a quick and shallow venture through the rows of corn would show me Dad's warning was not as dire as I'd thought. Then I caught my mother watching TV. She was transfixed. The local news played on the round screen, the anchor delivering a breaking news bulletin that read, "A local teen is missing. Authorities suspect kidnapping." I walked over next to my mother, listening to this newscast. Suddenly, she wrapped her arm around my back and pulled me to her. The expression she wore reminded me all too well of my father's when he had spoken of the fields. "Sweetie, I don't want you in those fields or too far from the house, okay?" she requested, eyes wide as could be. Once more, I found myself nodding furiously. Now both my father and mother had warned me of the same. I began to suspect there was something more to this cautionary demand that I was being told. As the months went by after that, more and more teens went missing, children who had last been seen walking back roads or loitering somewhere past curfew. I wasn't surprised they were kids. I felt it too. That rambunctious desire to rebel or sneak out, to hang out with friends when and where you shouldn't be. It put them in a position without protection. Obviously, there was someone or something out there taking people who strayed a little too far from home. A few days after I turned 7, a new report was aired on the news. Another farmer, a few miles from our own homestead, had called in to the local news station with an encounter he'd had. My family first heard it on the radio one night. Father sat in his recliner chewing tobacco, while Mother shelled some purple hull peas on the couch. I sat on the floor, linking toy train cars to a model steam engine I'd received for my birthday. When the broadcast played in our tiny wooden living room, the three of us sat in stunned silence. My dad squinted his eyes, and my mother took a deep breath.
Since spring last year, over 21 local teenagers have been taken and none have been found. Authorities have been on the lookout for suspects or clues, even offering rewards for information leading to the apprehension of the kidnapper or the location of any of the children. Now, new information has come forward that may be related to the ongoing local crisis. But be warned, it might sound more far-fetched than you'd expect. Take this report with a grain of salt. Local farmer, Mr. Bernhardt, shared a strange encounter with us, an encounter he believes to have been with the very force that has impacted our downtrodden community. Mr. Bernhardt had been working his fields yesterday afternoon around 5:30 p.m. when he claims that his sheep in the nearby pasture began to cry out in a panic. Jumping from his tractor, he ran to the pasture to see a most startling sight. The following is Mr. Bernhardt's own description of the event he witnessed. Allegedly, a massive figure was tearing at the fence posts surrounding the pasture. The figure was tall, dark, and covered in fur with the snout of a beast. Mr. Bernhardt claims to have heard it roar akin to a lion when it saw him approaching. The creature, supposedly larger than the farmer himself, then took off into the nearby forests, where 4 of the missing children were last seen. A bizarre story, that is certain, but police say they are not brushing off the report. Searches have already commenced in the forested region, and authorities now recommend keeping your children indoors and staying inside before evening if at all possible.
Suddenly, my father laughed. My mother and I looked over at him. The middle-aged man cleared his throat and looked towards us with a dwindling smile.
Figured we finally had some news on them missing kids, but it was nothing but a bogus boogeyman.
He shook his head as he finished that sentence.
Well, Mom sighed. Might still be something to it. Jason, you better take what you heard serious. You best stay in this house after finishing your morning chores. I'll have to come with you for your evening chores, too.
She stared at me through thick-rimmed glasses.
Yes'm,
I replied.
Yup.
Father grunted. He leaned forward toward me in a stiff manner.
You best stay out them fields altogether. You hear, boy?
Another year passed by. A few more kids went missing. I'd become more and more sheltered in my home out of my parents' fear that I might be taken next. That winter brought with it one of the most devastating moments of my life. Recalling it here makes my chin quiver and my jaw tighten. The morning began like any other. I went out to feed the goats and shovel manure from the horse stables. I'd seen my mother enter the fields to help my father with the corn. Busy covering my nose from the wicked smell, I was taken by surprise when I heard the screaming. Immediately, I jumped up, dropping the shovel and turning to face the fields behind me. I wondered, what do I do? You decide the fate of Jason and the outcome of this story. Comment below what happens next, and I'll see if I can write the next part of the story based on that. Or read the comments below and like your favorite path. Be sure to like this episode too, if you like the idea or the story itself, and you want to hear more. Stay tuned, everyone, and let's see where this goes.